double your productivity, double your output, and double your results. When you talk about Hello, my name is Braian Tracey, and I'm going to share with you some ideas on time management and effective delegation. Our goal in working together is to double your productivity, double your output, and double your results. When you talk about successful people, you find that successful people are always described as being highly productive. That means that in a certain period of time, they get much more results than average people because they think about results all the time. One of the great discoveries, by the way, is that you become what you think about most of the time. So a good question in time management and delegation is, what do you think about most of the time? If you think the wrong thoughts, you will take the wrong road and you will go in the wrong direction. So the starting point of you becoming very good at time management is for you to become very clear about what you want, very clear about what you want to accomplish, very clear about getting more and better results than anyone else. Here's an interesting discovery. 50% of working time is wasted. What does that mean? It means that people talk and they drink coffee and they read the newspaper and they go out for lunch or dinner, but they don't do the work. So what we find is successful people, highly productive people, think about results all the time. The most important work or word in business is results. The most important quality is results orientation. That means that you focus on results all the time. So when you start your day, and I've taught these ideas now to actually millions of people all over the world. When you start today, you always have to ask, what results are expected of me? Of all the results that are expected of you, which are the most important results? My favorite question in time management is start off by making a list. And this is the wonderful thing, is a list of everything that you could think of to do. And then you look at the list and you could say, if I can only do one thing before the end of the day, which one result is more important than any other? And you look at your list of goals, look at your list of results, and you put a circle around the most important result that you can get. And then what you do is you start with that. One of the biggest mistakes that people make in time management is you have a series of things that you have to do, let us say 10 results, but then people start off with a little result or an unimportant result or something that is fast and easy to get. Whereas successful people start by thinking clearly what they want to get done. And then they think through, if I could only do one thing, what would it be? And then you write it down. Remember, planning before you start to work is the key to doubling and tripling your productivity. In every company and in every society, there are some people who are highly productive. They accomplish a lot of goals and results in the course of the day or the week or the month. Your job is to make a decision that you are going to be one of the most productive people in your business. Now, what I've done with my staff is I will sit them around a table and we will discuss what is the most important job that you are doing right now. And 50% of people, maybe even 80% of people, do not know their most important task. So what they do is when a task comes to them, they just begin to start working on it. And if they complete that task, then they start on whatever task is sitting there in front of them. Your job is to take time to think through your workday before you begin, to write down a list of everything that you want to get done today. And then you organize the list and you say, if I could only complete one task today, which one task would be the most important and most valuable to my company? If I could only complete two tasks today before the end of the day, which would be the second most important task? And if you could only complete three tasks, which would be number three? When I began to study time management many years ago, I discovered this wonderful idea called the law of three. And the law of three says that if you make a list of everything you do, and the average person does 20 to 30 different tasks in the course of a day or a week or a month. If you make a list and then you ask yourself, if I could only complete one task today, which one task would contribute the most value to my company? And put a circle around that. If you could only complete two tasks, which would be the second most invaluable task? If you could only complete three tasks, which would be number three? Your ability to do this before you begin working will double and triple your productivity from the very beginning. Most people react to work assignments that come to them. They start to work on whatever is there and they don't think about it. Your job is to think before you act. Think before you take action. Now, the law of three says that there are three things that you do in the course of your working day or month or year. There are three things that you do that contribute 90% of your value. So what are the three most important tasks? What I used to think was that I could decide this, and then I found something else. I need to talk to my boss, the people above me. I need to talk to my colleagues, the people next to me, and I need to talk to my staff, the people below me, and ask them, what do they think is the most valuable and important work that you do? What do they think is the most valuable work? If you want to be successful, you should always be working on the task that your boss considers to be more important than anything else. And because of the time changing, is you have to be prepared to step back and ask this question every day. If I could only complete one task today, what one task would contribute the most value to my organization? If I could only complete two tasks and three tasks. And now, if we talk about delegation, your main job is to help the people who report to you, help them to choose the right task, help them to start work on the right task, and help them to continue working on the right task until it's complete. And this is the key to you becoming one of the most productive people in your business, and to you teaching people around you to become highly productive as well. So that's the starting point of delegation, is to think in advance what is the most important thing that you need to do. The next thing you do is you make a list of, to complete this task, what are all the things that I would have to do? Remember, every job has a certain number of steps. The first step and the second step and the third step. Your job is to take the time to think, and what are the steps that you have to take to achieve your most important goal? And then what is your number one task? And then begin on that. Most people work in a random way. They do a little work here and then a little work there, and then they stop and do something else, and then they come back. But your job is to think before you act, write everything down, and start with number one. What is your most important task? What is the one thing that if you do it will make the greatest difference? When you delegate to your staff, you ask the same question. If this person could only do one task before the day was over, what is the most important thing that they could do? And then you help them to work on that task. Some years ago, IBM, the biggest company in the world at that time, they had 83% of the world market for computers back in the 1980s. They found themselves in serious financial problems because they were less and less productive. They were spending more and more time, but they were not producing enough results. So they replaced the number one person, the president. They brought in a new chief, and this person didn't even know anything about computers. He didn't have a computer, but what he did have was an instinct for high productivity. So he called his people together and he just simply asked them, of all the things that we could do, what are the most important and the most valuable? And then he helped every single person apply the law of three to their work. So every single person started off with their three most important tasks. Then they taught each of their employees to determine or define the three most important tasks, and then to work on their three most important tasks. And the job of every manager became, first of all, to work on their most important tasks, and second is to help everyone else work on their most important tasks. And the combination of those two took people and made them some of the most productive people in the world. Now, there's a famous story of a man named Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie was a penniless immigrant. He had no money, and he came over from Scotland to the United States. And at the age of 14, he got a job in a steel plant, a steel factory. And from that day onward, he would arrive in the morning for work, and he would wait until they choose the people who would work that day. Well, he was a hard worker and he was very productive. And so he received more and more assignments, more and more delegations. And he started to move up as a manager. And one day he was working away late at night, and a management consultant who was working with the board of directors, the top people in the company, was leaving the factory about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And he saw Andrew Carnegie, who was working away in his office. And he stopped in and he said, "Hello, I'm a management consultant with this company. Is there anything that I can do to help you to be more productive?" And Andrew Carnegie said, "I have so much work that I can never get anything done. My desk is covered with work and I'm always behind. Is maybe you can help me to be more productive." So this famous meeting took place, and it led to this man becoming the richest man in the world. And what he did, the management consultant said, "Well, I'm going to give you an exercise. I want you to take a sheet of paper and I want you to look at everything on your desk, and I want you to write down every single task that you have to complete in the next day or week or month. Just write it down." And so he sat quietly, and Andrew Carnegie began to write down every task on his desk. And there are piles and piles and piles of work. And he just sat there patiently and he kept writing out these tasks. Then the management consultant said, "Now, if you could only complete one task on this list, which one task would have the greatest value? And please write that down." And so Andrew Carnegie took his pad of paper and wrote down number one. He said, "Now, what would be task number two in terms of importance?" And so he wrote down number two, and then task number three, number four, number five, and number six. He said, "Tomorrow morning, when you start working on number one, the most important task, before you do anything else. You have already decided that this is more important than anything else, so don't do anything else. Just do that one task. And once you've completed that one task, then look at your list and say, is your number two task still the second most important task that you can do? And if it is, then you start work on task number two. And you keep doing this and start from the very top with the most important task, and you work on it, and you continue to work on it until it's complete. And tell me what happens to you in your work, and we will talk again in another week or two. So Andrew Carnegie took this piece of advice, made a list of everything he needed to do, organized the first 6 tasks in a separate sheet of paper, and then he began work on task number 1, and he worked on it until it was complete. Then he began work on task number 2. By the end of the day, he had finished his 6 most important tasks, and his desk began to clear up. He began to have more space and more time. And from that day onward, he began to set priorities, organizing his work so he was always doing the most important task. He had other people who reported to him, other managers, and he sat them down and he taught them this same method. So each person who worked with him sat down and decided and worked out what is the most important task that I could possibly do. And then he worked with them to help them to get all the resources they needed to complete the most important task. And all of the people around him became more and more productive. Now, here's an interesting thing that happens is when you become more productive, it changes the way you think. It makes you more positive. It makes your mind much more clear. It gives you more confidence and more optimism. And as you begin to complete these tasks, you have more and more energy to complete even more tasks. Soon, Andrew Carnegie, the small manager, began to be promoted because he was so productive. And as he was promoted, he would continue to focus on the most important task. And then he began to teach all of the people around him to work on the most important task. Andrew Carnegie soon became a stockholder of the company, and he began to be paid more than he ever dreamed possible. When he began to teach his staff these ideas of working on your most important task, many of these people became millionaires. They became highly productive, and they were promoted within the company, and sometimes they were promoted in other companies. And by the end of his career, he was the richest man in the world, and he was called the Millionaire Maker. And this was back in 1895, a long time ago. But more people became millionaires after working for Andrew Carnegie and following this principle of concentrating on the most important task. More people became millionaires than any other person in business history. And it's the same for you. Everybody that I know, and sometimes I will ask my audience, I'll say, how many people here would like to become a millionaire? And of course, I mean a dollar or a euro millionaire. How many people would like to become a millionaire? And everybody raises their hand. I said, well, good. Well, I'll show you how to become a millionaire. And I'll show you several different ways. And I even wrote a book called 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. And every one of them comes down to focusing on the most valuable thing that you can possibly do. And then working on that task until it's complete. So task completion is the key to great success. Task completion is also the great key to great mental and emotional success, because when you start and complete your most important I mean a dollar or a euro millionaire. How many people would like to become a millionaire? And everybody raises their hand. I said, well, good. Well, I'll show you how to become a millionaire. And I'll show you several different ways. And I even wrote a book called 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. And every one of them comes down to focusing on the most valuable thing that you can possibly do. And then working on that task until it's complete. So task completion is the key to great success. Task completion is also the great key to great mental and emotional success, because when you start and complete your most important task, you become more positive and more optimistic, and you actually are motivated to start and complete the next task and the next task. You have more energy to complete your more important tasks. And then you share these ideas with the people who work for you. You share with these ideas and make sure that they are always working on the most important thing they can do to get the most important results. In business, always remember that the most important word is results. Always remember that your job is to get results that people will pay you for. Sometimes I will ask my audience, I will say, what is your most valuable skill? What is your most valuable skill? And I will let them think about it for a while. And I'll say, your most valuable skill is to get results that people will pay you for. And the more valuable the results that you get, the more you will earn. I learned this when I was in my early 20s, is there's always too much to do. There are always too many tasks. You'll never get caught up with all of your work. So you have to be very selective, and you have to choose those few jobs that are more valuable than anything else. And you must develop the habit of starting and completing your most important task. This is the key for you to become highly productive. And then it's the key for each of your staff to become highly productive as well. If your goal is to be one of the highest paid and most productive people in your business, then this is the simple formula. I have taught these ideas now to more than 5 million people in live seminars like this in 84 countries. And what I found is that the most important ideas are sometimes the simplest ideas of all. But you need to stop and think before you take action. You need to stop and think, if I could only complete one task today, what one task would be more valuable to my company than any other task? And then work on that task until it's complete. If you want to be highly respected by the people around you, if you want to be highly respected by the people above you, then always become more productive. Always look at ways to start and set priorities. Remember, every single job that you have to do is in an organized list of priorities, and one job is more important, and a second job is less important, and a third job is less important. And your job is to think before you act. It's to think before you work. It's to think before you begin, and then to discipline yourself to work nonstop on this one task, and to work on this one task until it's complete. I found, by the way, that if you are going to be a superior manager, if you're going to move to the top of your field, you're going to have to learn how to become highly productive through other people. Management is defined as getting results through others. So your job, if you want to move to the top of your field, the way to become productive is to become good at supervising, good at giving people constant feedback, like a good coach in football, like a good manager in business. You continually give people feedback and ideas to help them to be more productive. You help them to focus all day long on the one task every minute that is more important than anything else. Now, at the beginning, this will be difficult. At the beginning, you will be distracted a lot. But once you get into the habit of completing your most important tasks, you find it's easier and easier to spend more time on the tasks that are more valuable to you and to your company. Your job is to develop the habit of self-discipline, the habit of starting and completing your most important tasks and not doing anything until those tasks are complete. Again, when I began to study this subject, I began to read books in time management. I traveled all over the country and took seminars in time management. I bought all the time management systems that were for sale in the market, and I worked with them. I would buy one system and I would work with it for an entire month. And then I would buy another system and work with that system for a month. Within a year, I had developed as habits all the best time management systems in the market today. There are still systems today available on iPad, on apps, on paper. There are books for time management. But the most important thing of all is what we're talking about, is to stop, think, write it down, and start work on your most important task. When you have people working for you, your job is to talk to them and help them to become very clear about the most important thing they can do. And then your job is to provide them with resources, with anything they need to complete their most important task. Your job is to become what we call a multiplication sign in business. That means that you concentrate on those things that enable you to accomplish much, much more and to get more and more valuable results. When you develop the habit of planning every day in advance, organizing your list by priority, starting work on your most important task, and then disciplining yourself to work on your most important task until it's complete. Many years ago, there was a famous man, a success expert named Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill studied 500 of the most successful people in every field to find out the qualities that they had. Then at the end of his career, he wrote a book called The Master Key to Riches. And in the book, and I've read the book 2 or 3 times, in the book, he said there is a key. There's something that you do or that you don't do that is more important to your productivity and success than anything else. And throughout the book, he went through and he talked about setting goals and setting priorities and starting early and working later and so on. And he said, and very soon I will tell you the master key to riches. And at the end of the book, about 250 pages, the last paragraph, the last line in the last paragraph was, the master key to riches is self-discipline. The master key to riches is self-discipline. Self-discipline is defined as your ability to start and work on your most important task and to stay with it until it's complete. If you can do that, you can conquer the world. And so very good managers and good companies teach people time management, like your company and your managers, and they teach them how to think through what they do before they start and then discipline themselves to do only those things that are more important than anything else. Most people like to do what is enjoyable or fun and easy, but top producers like yourself do what is difficult but necessary. And people would often ask, what are the most important tasks that you do? These are the tasks that you don't like to do, but you do them anyway because they're more valuable than anything else. You stop and you think, and then you discipline yourself to start on your most important task and to work at it 100% of the time. So those are the keys to great productivity and success. Is first of all, think, and then think on paper, write on paper, write down a list of everything that you have to do, and then organize the list by priority. What is more important and more valuable than anything else? And then begin with your most important task and work on that task until it's complete. Once you develop the habit of starting and completing your most important task, and delegating to others so they start and complete their most important tasks, you'll become one of the most valuable and highest paid people in your field. You will double your income and double your value to your business. I hope this has been helpful to you.